I want to kind of set the stage here for some of the information that you've put out, and I'd like you to talk about some of the specific forensics, especially about the weapons usage and the type of rounds that are claimed to be used. NBC News reported, one of many, that shortly after the suspect had been identified as Tyler Robinson, is that they said that there was a powerful vintage weapon. They said here, and you see that it was a 30-06 caliber rifle, a Mauser type model 98, which is a bolt action, not even a semi-automatic. There was another later on that they actually showed a photograph of what they said was the recovered rifle. And then you see it right here. So it's an old one. They said it was used in the World Wars, if I'm not mistaken, or some variant of it. And then we have this claim that, that's the 30-06. We're going to show some videos that I found on your website about what a 30-06 bullet will do when it's fired from relatively close range, which this one was. Let's go, first of all, to the ex-post by the chief of staff for Charlie Kirk. I just spoke with the surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital. He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. That's important. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc., but it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. His bone was so healthy. This is also important here. I'm going to show you in a second with this video. And the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. So now let me run to the remember those things. 30-06. It was stopped because of his neck, and he's the man of steel. Okay, so now here were a couple of guys who said, all right, let's go out and take a look and see what a 30-06 with a bolt action rifle would actually do in similar circumstances. Watch this.
We're not only going to take a cow femur, but for anybody that says, wow, there's no meat, we're going to slap on a fat 4 inches of beef in front of the cow femur and see what happens.
And then give him thick skin like Nate.
All right, last test on the meat. Again, cow femur, bunch of beef, thick tape, and then we're going to move up to the steel. Here we go. Well, we can't. Everything exploded. All right, let's check it out. Cow femur. The damage to that literally snapped in half.
Okay, now, Gary, if you could pull that other image of the at the moment of shot. This is what we have been told is a 30-06 from a bolt-action rifle from relatively close range, and the neck stopped it. Can you explain to us what we're seeing here?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing doesn't match up with what we're being told. There is no way that rifle that was shown, number one, I'm not sure it's a vintage rifle. It looked like it had a polymer receiver in stock. But if a 30-06 had hit Charlie in the neck, the head would have exploded. It would have been one of the most horrific scenes that anybody had ever witnessed. Instead, he was shot with something that did. All we can do is go by what we saw his body do. What we saw his body do was he initially started moving forward. His shirt poofed up and out in the front and back. It was very rapid. If you realize that 1 second of film and 1 second of that video is 30 frames of video. So in literally 1/30th of a second, his shirt pushes out and in the back and front, and yet there's not an exit wound. We then see blood start pouring from the neck. Now, I don't know if in your combat, if you ever saw anybody with an arterial wound, but anybody that's had an artery cut, as the heart is pumping, that blood is spurting out just like a squirt gun. It comes out. Well, that entrance wound of that bullet it severed the carotid, I'm sure. But in the time, literally, as that bullet entered into his neck, It reportedly hit the spine, and then it went downward trajectory, and it's called cavitation. It's like an internal explosion. And in that literally 1/30th of a second, it destroyed his heart. That's why you don't see blood pumping out of his neck. And, I posted at Sonar 21 a short video of a deer getting shot, where you can see the cavitation ripple through the body, and it killed the deer. Well, that's what happened to Charlie. So the odds are he was hit with a round, because I got information yesterday as well from another good friend, and he had spoken with a senior person at TPUSA, someone who's in a position to know. And the person at TPUSA said, actually, what happened is the damage that was done to the spinal cord, and they found bullet fragments, not the bullet intact, but bullet fragments, which is consistent with what's known as a frangible bullet. Those were initially designed to be used by police, along with hollow points, so that they wouldn't pass through an individual that had been shot and hit some innocent bystander behind. So when you match all of that up, some other kind of weapon was used to kill Charlie Kirk. Not the story the FBI is telling us is a pure lie.
Okay, and see, now that also lends itself to another problem. Gary, if you can put that X post back up there again. Look carefully at what was said by Andrew Colvett. He said, I just spoke with the surgeon in the hospital, and he said the bullet should have gone through. It was a high-powered, high-velocity round. That is not the kind of round that you're saying this other person who's saying. So somebody's not telling the truth here, because a high-powered bullet will not stop. I don't care how thick your neck is, it's not going to go through. And in fact, he said in that, he called him a man of steel. Well, in that same group of people that were doing those videos here, they said, well, let's see what happens if we shoot that round at steel.
All right, so let's check out what 30-06 did to literal steel here. We have and thank God we got an actual competition shooter here to hit this 2-inch by 2-inch plate from 100 yards, which I probably wouldn't have been able to. Clean through 1/4-inch steel, clean through 3/8-inch steel, and 1/2-inch steel. Almost, or actually, it potentially did actually blow out the side of that.
Yeah,
that is up to a 1/2 inch of steel. It is physically impossible for
Correct.
what this guy said to have been true. What do you make of these incongruities?
Yeah, well, he's getting lied to. He doesn't have any experience with firearms. So you accept that the doctor must know what he's talking about. And, this evidence is coming out now. Well, as we look at what they claim is the evidence, but then you match it up against real world. Because here you've seen, by the way, the guy doing that, he broadcasted a channel called Valhalla VFT. He's a retired Special Forces sergeant, and had a number of combat tours. But they basically challenge these guys because they hear that. No, listen, we've seen people shot with this round, and the story they're telling about Charlie Kirk does not add up. And so as you begin to just see the actual video evidence, that there's no way it could have been a 30-06. Yet that story is being put out there. And it'd be bad enough if they said, well, we're still, they were out early making the claim that it was this 30-06 rifle.
Yeah.
So this is, this tells me this is a constructed narrative.
Right.
And why is the question.
That is the question. Gary, if you could put that one of the actual weapon that's claimed, the alleged weapon that was used, that they said this is what they found in the woods. Now, tell me from looking at this, because you're more weapons expert than I am. This looks like a solid weapon here. This does not look like something that you can take apart and disassemble rapidly.
Correct.
And yet, in that video that allegedly is the shooter running off the roof, in that whole scene, and we've shown this on the show before, when he runs all the way across into the grassy area, all the way after he gets off, you don't ever see any of a long rifle like this. And the claim was been oil. He had it disassembled and he had it in his backpack.
Yeah.
But how's that rifle, unless he reassembled it when he put it back in the woods, it's not. So you would have had to seen it somewhere. And he walked past people. If he'd have been carrying a rifle, people would have saw it. They walked past,
Sure.
but that didn't happen. What do you make of that?
Well, and again, there is a version of the Mauser out there, but that wasn't it. That actually detaches. If you look at the front of that optic, the front of the scope that sits on top of the barrel, and about 6 inches in front of it, there's actually a piece that you can lift up, and it disconnects the rest of the barrel from the receiver. If you had that kind of Mauser, yeah, you could break it down, but that's not it. So this one, you would have to take. My understanding is there are 2 screws under the, what we look at, that wood part the barrel sits in. It's called the receiver. That there are 2 screws that you take out, and that can't be done rapidly. That takes some time. So yeah, the entire story. So not only does the claim about the ease of breaking the rifle down not hold up, but the kind of caliber the kind of bullet that is fired out of that rifle doesn't explain what we saw, because we would have seen something much more horrific and terrible. And with Charlie, I noticed early on, right as he's shot, you see this immediate stiffening, and that stiffening is characteristic of damage to a spinal column, to a cerebral cortex. And so that all tracks now with hypothetically a bullet like a 300 Blackout, which comes in both frangible and soft tip, could have been fired and done the damage. And if it's fired it looks like it's fired at about a 20-degree angle, that would have been, the bullet enters here, but then immediately hits the spinal column, and the cavitation on it, again, we're talking 1/30th of a second.
And I'm sorry, could you explain for our viewers what is frangible? What kind of round is that?
It looks like it's lead, but it actually, when it hits either into skin or metal, it breaks up. It goes into pieces, so it doesn't stay intact like a hard bullet. It is actually, and it causes it's devastating when used as a defensive round, because the pieces spread out and shred a whole variety of tissue. So a frangible bullet could have done the kind of damage. The other thing we see, though, in the video with Charlie is literally within, after that first 1/30th of a second that he struck, his chest swells and his neck swells. It's like he'd been pumped suddenly with air that expanded, and then it contracted.
And that would be the cavitation. Is that correct?
That is the cavitation. Exactly right. So, now it's starting to make sense. But what doesn't make sense is the story the FBI is telling. And there's a good video out by Chris Martenson that goes over some of this. And, if they ever bring Tyler Robinson to trial, hell, I could be his defense attorney. All I got to do is bring in the video by Chris Martenson. Jurors are going to watch that. All you have to do is create reasonable doubt that Tyler was the shooter. That would do it right there. There is no way that they're going to be able to have a successful prosecution of this kid. And what his role was in all of this, we don't know, because it's not even clear if he was up on the roof. And the videos of him coming across the roof, when he comes out from behind that building, see right there, when he gets to the edge of that white thing, if you look closely, the shadow, before when he was on the dark portion of the roof, the shadow disappears. And then it's a little tough to see, but
yeah, I do. I see where there's a shadow there. I can see it even on the gravel, but now he gets to the white part. Where'd the shadow go?
Yeah, shadow disappears. And if you
look at that,
as he's starting to climb down off the roof, look in the background. You'll see this guy walking way back there in the background
Yep.
on the sidewalk. Then he disappears.
Holy crap. Yeah, Gary, run that back. Look at that.
So this video has been tampered with.
Wow. I
So-
had missed that part.
Yeah. So they're lying. They're absolutely lying. And you got to say why.
That is crazy. And of course, there you can see there is no assembled rifle. You can see there's not one there.
Yeah, you got. Now I showed. I posted on Sonar 21 a picture of a short-barreled rifle. Actually, I have one, and it shoots 300 blackout, and those can easily fit into a backpack. In fact, I should have brought it here and showed it on screen, but it's this big.
Yeah, I saw the picture of it on Sonar 21, but that's not what he used. So then you probably don't have the answer to this.
That's what could have been used. Something like
could have been.
Yeah,
but we're told something that
we're told
really
something completely different.
Been.
Yeah.
So then, do you have any? And I know we're running short on time here, but do you have any theories on what would have? Where could the shot have come from if it wasn't him on the roof?
Well, it's not my theory. It's Chris Martenson presents it. He says it actually came from another building that was about, would have provided a 20-degree angle at Charlie Kirk. So it would have been to Charlie's, to his left. It would have been if it really like let's call it a 45-degree angle. Whereas what the FBI is claiming is that this Tyler Robinson was almost at a 90-degree angle. So there is another line of sight, but the ballistics. Even if Tyler Robinson was in the position that he claimed he was in, with a 30-06 Mauser rifle, that wasn't the shot that killed Charlie Kirk. It was something different. And there have also been these stories. Oh, it was an exploding microphone. Okay, have you ever fired anything, gun, cannon, where you detonate it, and the thing that it was detonated from moves forward? No. Everything is like when you fire a pistol, the pistol comes back at you.
Yeah.
And so they're wanting to maintain that this microphone that was clipped on Charlie was one of those Israeli exploding microphones or pagers. Except when the shirt does this microphone goes, whoa, moves over in the direction.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was
not only that, but then if what they said was true, then there would have been an entry wound there, and that was allegedly the exit wound. But then there would have been blood here too, and there wasn't. Ever in a white shirt. You couldn't have hidden it, and there wasn't.
Yeah. So it's incumbent upon American citizens, regardless of your political standing, to demand answers on this. I was not a Charlie Kirk supporter. I paid attention to him occasionally with some of his debates. I found him entertaining, but I had no idea how big his movement was or paid much attention. But this was a political assassination. This was an organized effort. This was not some lone nut gunman. And the efforts and the incompetence now demonstrated by the FBI in the wake of this, as well as local law enforcement, raise a lot of questions about what the hell was going on.
Yeah, and so far we haven't had an answer, but it's very disturbing the ramifications of this. I mean, the obvious question is, who would have ordered this? And I know there's lots of theories that it could have been the Israelis or several other things like that. I don't know. I don't have any idea at all, other than that the evidence clearly refutes what we're being told, but it's unclear yet what it was. But it's concerning because especially if the FBI and law enforcement seem to be working together to craft a narrative, then that implies that there's a different real narrative. And, I think we deserve that.
Right. They were out very quick with the alternative narrative. And in fact, fed us the story that this was all about some 22-year-old kid who was upset that his older trans lover was being disrespected by Charlie Kirk. And there's actually no evidence to support that other than that weird series of text messages are put out where he was talking about his vehicle and his outfit. They've actually found a police body camera footage of him, Tyler, like 2 years ago when he got pulled over in his car for the traffic accident or something, and he refers to it as his car, not his vehicle.
Yeah, no one talks like. In fact, you look at that whole exchange, and I saw one video by a law enforcement expert who analyzes these kinds of things, and he said there's so many inaccuracies and inconsistencies with this that would it's unlikely, very significantly, that a millennial would have spoken like this to his alleged gay lover. So I that's just another one of the big red flags for me.
Yeah. So this. Accused of you're promoting conspiracy. No, I'm just saying, look, we know 3 or 4 basic facts. We know the fact that there was a gunshot. We all heard it. We know the fact that a bullet entered Charlie's body and did not exit. We have no evidence of an entry and exit wound. We only have one hole going in. We know from the video that his body increased in size and then decreased in size. And then after that, he began bleeding profusely like somebody had turned on tap water, and he was dead in an instant. That's all we actually know factually.
Yeah.
We don't know where the shot actually came from. We don't know precisely what round was used. We don't know precisely what rifle was used. And we don't know, anybody that was going to carry out that shot had to have done some reconnaissance. You would have had to done reconnaissance on the area, and you would have had to have some knowledge about exactly precisely where Charlie was going to be seated. Candace Owens yesterday raised the possibility that people within the Turning Point USA organization actually may have been involved with this. And you know what? They're the Turning Point USA is the only one that had the information about where Charlie was going to be seated, what the position of the chair would be, etc. So that if someone's going to be conducting pre-reconnaissance to check the spot out,
line of shot and all that.
You've got to take that into account is one thing to look at.
Let me ask you this. I couldn't find the video just before we came on here, and I wish I could have. I would have loved to have had it on there. But there was one thing that I have seen. I have not. A lot of this stuff has been talked about on a bunch of channels. But one thing I haven't seen, but which to me, from a physical security perspective and the security team behavior, something was really out of place to me, and that is there was a guy standing in front of his chair in a plaid shirt. And when the shot goes up, a lot of people have been talking about it. Allegedly, they passed something along to somebody else. But the thing that really stood out to me that something was amiss was the guy, when the shots fired, he's allegedly security for Charlie Kirk, right? He's out there providing in front of the audience, etc. When the shot is fired, he turns around and leaps over the table and then runs out the back. And allegedly he gets something from one of the other guys, but forget about whether that did or didn't happen. And I'm asking, this is a question, what possible reason would a security detail have in the event that the principal was shot to not even look at the boss, run right over him and run out the back door that I didn't see any time after that? What do you think?
Well, if they had a security protocols, for example, say, in case of a gunshot, this is what we do. Your job is to go here and get the vehicle, as an example. That could be one thing. So I don't read as much suspicion into that because, these teams, in theory, they're supposed to practice a whole variety of contingencies that you brief in advance about, if there's a bomb that goes off in the crowd, what do we do? Who does what? Who's got what mission? If perchance Charlie is shot, what do we do? Who does what? Who applies first aid? Who gets the car? They should have probably had an ambulance pre-staged. With hindsight, we're all geniuses. They didn't. But you know, I
So
saw
see what I'd like to see is I'd like to see what was the plan before. Don't tell me after the fact, but what was your
Right.
plan before? What were these guys reciting? Because if they rehearsed it, then that means there was a plan. I'd
Right.
like to see it.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And this, it was still a bit chaotic. I saw the one guy jump over the table and it looked like he grabbed something. They grabbed something off of Charlie.
That's him actually right there. That the guy that just on the right side of that. There he is now.
Yeah, he goes around.
There he is right there.
He goes around the other side to open the door.
So, but that's the guy that immediately ran past him. Didn't even look to see how he was. He just ran past him. So, if that was part of the protocol, I'd like to know where he went and see that validated by something of before the incident. And
Right.
if it's legit, cool, it's legit. But I'd like to see it. Well, listen, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to cut it short here. We have some other shows we got to get ready for. But really appreciate you coming on today. These have both been very fascinating stuff that we've been talking about today, and super appreciate your views.
All right, my friend. I always appreciate it. Thanks.
And we'll look forward to seeing you very much on the next time. And in fact, if you can join us back in about an hour, we're going to have Colonel Doug McGregor back with us for a second time this week. We're going to go into some depth on something that was talked about yesterday by Secretary of War Hegseth to his generals in a plan to actually reduce by 30% a lot of the generals. And as it turns out, Colonel McGregor has this a plan to how you would do that effectively as opposed to something haphazardly in part of an overall strategy. Absolutely, what he's got to say here is absolutely fascinating. You're not going to want to miss that. Join us at 2 p.m. today. Colonel Doug McGregor also talking about, and actually that's only part of what we're going to talk about, and Larry mentioned it here before, is that there has been some activity that makes it look like we're actually preparing for combat as well. Don't miss that. 2 p.m. today, Daniel Davis Deep Dive. See you then.